Welcome everyone, this is Kerjims channel. Now we are back to our new episodes of Chou, Semi-Running Champions and Comparison, featured by Wild League of Legends versus the Mobile Legend Bang Bang. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell icon. You will be notified to our new next episode video. Let's do this!
Among the many spirits Ionians revere, none are as storied as that of the dragon. While some believe it embodies ruin, others view it as a symbol of rebirth. Few can say for certain, and fewer still have ever been able to channel the dragon spirit, and none so completely as Lee Sin. He arrived at the Shoujin monastery as a boy, claiming the dragon had chosen him to wield its power. The elder monk saw flashes of its fire in the talented boy, but also sensed his reckless pride, and the disaster it could bring. Warily, they nonetheless took him as a pupil though. As others advanced, the elders kept him cleaning dishes and scrubbing floors. Lee Sin grew impatient. He longed to fulfill his destiny, not waste time on chores. Sneaking into the hidden archives, he found ancient texts describing how to call upon the spirit realm, and chose to flaunt his skill during a combat lesson. Brashly, he unleashed the dragon's rage in a wild kick, paralyzing his learned instructor. Consumed with shame and banished for his arrogance, the young man set out to atone. Years passed. Lee Sin wandered far to distant places, benevolently aiding those in need. Eventually he reached the Freljord, where he met Udyr, a wild man who channeled the primal beast of his homeland. The so-called Spirit Walker struggled to control the powers that worked within him, and Lee Sin began to wonder if controlling the dragon was even possible. Sharing a need for spiritual guidance, the two men forged a bond, and he invited Udyr on his journey back home. The two were dismayed to hear that the Empire of Noxus had invaded and occupied Ionia. Monks from every province had fallen back to defend the holy monastery at Hirana, high up in the mountains. Lee Sin and Udyr found it besieged. Noxian soldiers had broken through Hirana's great hall. As Udyr leapt to join the fray, Lee Sin hesitated, seeing his former peers and elders fall to the enemy's blades. The wisdom of Hirana, Shoujin, so much of Ionia's ancient culture, all would be lost. With no other choice left, he invoked the dragon spirit. A tempest of flames engulfed him, searing his skin and burning the sight from his eyes. Imbued with wild power, he crippled the invaders with a flurry of breakneck punches and rapid kicks, the untamable spirit flaring brighter and hotter with each blow. The monks were victorious, but Lee Sin's desperate actions left the monastery in ruins, and his vision would never return. At last, in the blind darkness, he understood that no mortal could ever bend the might of the dragon spirit to their will completely. Devastated, agonized, he bound a cloth over his sightless eyes and tried to stagger away down the mountain's paths. But the surviving elders stopped him. In forsaking all desires for power, their disgraced pupil was finally ready to begin anew. Although they would not forget his previous arrogance, the monks offered absolution. The dragon's wrath was deadly and unpredictable, true enough, but the humblest and worthiest mortal souls could counter its fiery nature and direct it from time to time. Grateful, Lee Sin stayed with the monks to rebuild their monastery, and after the work was done and the Spirit Walker returned to Freljord, Lee Sin devoted himself fully toward the pursuit of enlightenment. In the years since the war with Noxus ended, he continued to meditate on his role in Ionia, knowing his homeland has not faced the last of its trials. Lee Sin must master himself, and the dragon spirit within, to face whatever foe is yet to come. It began in the ancient woods of Ionia. There, 3 men hacked their way onward, driven by hearts filled with greed. For 6 days, they fought with the jungle around them. But now, the lost temple was in front of them, covered with plants blooming with red, blue, and golden colors. "You see that, Horda?" said Vren. "Didn't we tell you the temple was real? So long as the treasures inside are real," said Horda, tossing aside the blunted hatchet and drawing a freshly sharpened sword. "You both staked your lives on that, remember?" "Don't worry, Horda," said Merida with a rasping cough. "You'll be able to buy your own place after this." "I'd better. Now draw your blades, kill anyone who gets in our way." The 3 raiders approached the temple, weapons glinting in the setting sun. The inside of the temple was unlike anything they had seen before. There were no sharp corners. Every edge flowed together instead of meeting at angles. Everything was bright and pure. "Why aren't there any guards?" Horta asked as he stepped inside. His question was left unanswered as they focused on the shimmering light coming from the chamber in front of them. Its roof was covered with carvings, and every wall glittered with colored chips of glass which formed a mosaic of vivid landscapes. Ivory tablets engraved with ancient Shoujin stories were placed upon pillars of carved bronze. Idols decorated with gems could be found all around the room. Statues of warrior gods, each trimmed with gold, stared down from a jade base. Horda grinned. Take it all." Vren and Merida sheathed their swords and flung open their packs. They began filling them with everything they could reach. Statues, idols, and gemstones, whooping with glee as they dragged a fortune in gold behind them. Horda circled the chamber, already planning their deaths when they got back to civilization, when he noticed that one of the statues was moving. At first glance, he thought it was a painted idol of a warrior monk, seated with his legs crossed and his hands resting on his knees, facing away from Horda. But now the man stood and turned on the spot with the fluid ease of a coiled snake. He wore loose-fitting trousers and a red bandana across his eyes. "Not so empty after all," said Horda, flexing his fingers on the leather grip of his sword. "Good, I was hoping I'd get to cut someone up." The monk cocked his head to the side, as though he was listening to sounds only he could hear, and said, "3 men, one with a blighted lung, another with a weak heart that will not see out the year." The sightless monk turned and stared directly at Horda, though there was surely no way he could see him through the thick fabric bound across his eyes. "You have a twist in your spine," he said. "It pains you in the winter and forces you to favor your left side." "What are you, some kind of seer?" demanded Horda, nervously licking his lips. The monk ignored his question. "I am Lee Sin." "Is that supposed to mean something?" asked Horda. "I give you this one chance to put back what you've taken," said Lee Sin. "Then leave this place and never return." "You're in no position to make demands, my blind friend," said Horda, letting the tip of his sword scrape across the stone floor. "There are 3 of us and you aren't even armed." Vren and Merida gave nervous laughs, wary of the monk's confidence even in the face of their advantage of numbers. Horda gestured with his free hand, and his 2 companions moved to flank the monk, each drawing a curved blade. "This is a sacred place," said Lee Sin with a rueful sigh. "It should not be desecrated." Horda gave the others a nod. "Put this sightless fool out of his misery." Vren stepped forward. Lee Sin was moving before his foot hit the ground. The monk went from being utterly still to a blur of motion in a blink of an eye. His arm whipped around and the hard edge of his hand struck Vren's neck. Bone crunched and the bandit dropped. His head twisted at an unnatural angle. Lee Sin swayed aside as Merida slashed with his sword. The blow was wild and the reverse stroke flashed over Lee Sin's head. The monk dropped flat, twisting as he fell to sweep his shin and scythe Merida's legs out from under him. The bandit collapsed, his weapon skittering away over the tiled floor. Lee Sin sprang to his feet and hammered his heel down on Merida's chest. stolen gemstones spilled from his fallen pack as his eyes bulged in agony as he fought for breath like a landed fish. "You're fast for a monk," said Horda, slicing his sword through the air in a series of blindingly swift maneuvers. "But I'm no slouch with a blade."
"You believe you are fast?"
asked Lee Sin. "Trained by the best, so you won't find me as easy to beat as those two idiots," said Horda, nodding toward the bodies of his former companions. Lee Sin made no reply as they circled one another. Horda watched as the blind man tracked his every motion. The monk's steps were fluid and precise, and Horda had the uncomfortable feeling that every passing second was revealing more of his own abilities to his opponent. He roared and threw himself at the monk, attacking in a blistering series of high slashes and lunges. Lee Sin swayed aside, moving like a wind-blown sapling as he dodged, deflected, and spun away from Horda's desperate strikes. He kept his blade in constant motion, forcing Lee Sin back with every attack. The monk hadn't even broken a sweat. His impassive mouth, covered eyes, and casual disdain infuriated Horda. He gathered himself for one final attack, drawing on every scrap of training, fury, and strength he could muster. His sword cut the air around the monk, but never once made contact. Lee Sin spun away one last time and bent his knees.
"You have speed and not a little skill,"
he said, muscles pulsing beneath his skin.
"But anger colors your every thought. It has consumed you and has led to your death."
Horda felt the air in the chamber grow warmer as streams of energy coalesced around Lee Sin. A fiery vortex engulfed the monk and Horda backed away in terror, his sword falling from his grip. Lee Sin was trembling, as though fighting to control energies more powerful than he could contain. The chamber reverberated with the sound of a rising wind. "Please," said Horda. I'll put it all back." Lee Sin leapt, propelled by the blistering hurricane of energy. His foot hammered into Horda's chest, hurling him backward. Horda slammed against the wall and stone cracked under the impact. He fell limply to the floor. Every bone in his spine shattered like broken pottery.
"You had a chance to avoid this, but you did not take it,"
said Lee Sin.
"Now you pay the price."
Horda's vision grayed at the edges as death approached, but not before he saw Lee Sin return to his seated position. The monk's back was to him, and as his posture relaxed, the vortex of lethal energies began to dissipate. Lee Sin bowed his head and resumed his meditation. And that was the full story of Lee Sin. This means two things. Udyr will get this story updated as well, and that our Shin, the legendary Ionian dragon, may still be a thing. I don't think he'll become a champion, but he may still be turned into a real character. Even though it is true that the original concept for our Shin was about storms and not fire, it is still possible that they can turn him into this legendary spirit. But that's it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, feel free to rate it and subscribe for more lore and news. If you're up for some other forms of entertainment, our Twitch and second channel will be linked below, as well as our merch and PO box if you'd like to send us something. Massive shout out to our patrons for going the extra mile. I'll always remember you guys. And with that, thank you all so much for being here and for your support. You know I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you come again.